The night her life shattered, the sky was mercilessly quiet. Alia stood on the front porch barefoot, the cold concrete biting into her skin while her husband slammed the door behind her, leaving her with nothing but a suitcase and a sentence that cut deeper than anything she had ever heard: "You can't give me a child. You're useless to me." The words echoed inside her like an earthquake tearing through a fragile home, breaking beams, collapsing walls, leaving dust and ruin in their wake. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She only stood still, clutching the handle of the suitcase that held years of her life, memories that no longer belonged to her. Cars passed by, lights blurred like streaks of judgment, and the world moved on while she remained frozen at the edge of everything she once knew. In that moment, it felt as if her breath itself had been exiled, lingering somewhere between disbelief and heartbreak. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion to change a life, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness so these stories continue reaching the hearts that need them most. Alia walked into the night with no destination except away from the home she had built, away from the humiliation, away from the man who had once promised to protect her. The city lights flickered over her like faint reminders that she still existed, even if she felt invisible. Her steps were heavy, pulling through a fog of shame she didn't deserve, but couldn't escape. She wandered until her legs trembled, until she reached a quiet park bench under an old oak tree. The branches swayed gently, as if whispering something she wasn't ready to hear: "Hold on." She hugged her suitcase and lowered her head, tears finally breaking free like a river forbidden too long. She cried until she felt empty, until the world blurred into a soft haze, until her body surrendered to exhaustion and she drifted into a restless sleep. Morning light arrived too soon, stabbing at her eyelids. Alia blinked awake, confused, chilled, and still broken. She heard soft footsteps and instinctively straightened, brushing her hair, wiping her eyes. A little girl stood a few feet away, holding a small paper cup of hot chocolate with both hands. She couldn't have been older than 7. Her brown eyes were round with worry, her ponytail messy yet adorable. Behind her, 2 identical twin boys, maybe 5, peeked shyly from behind a tall man wearing a dark coat and a tired smile. The girl stepped closer, offering the warm cup with the gentle confidence of someone raised with kindness. Alia hesitated, but the child said, "It's for you. Daddy said you looked cold." Alia lifted her gaze to the man, their father. His presence was warm, steady, and surprisingly familiar, though she didn't know him. His eyes didn't look at her with pity, they looked at her as if she mattered, as if her pain was visible and valid. She accepted the cup with trembling hands, whispering a thank you. The warmth seeped into her fingers, traveling up her arms, thawing something she thought had frozen forever. The man watched her carefully, noticing the suitcase, the dark circles under her eyes, the exhaustion she tried to hide. He introduced himself softly, telling her his name was Rayan, a CEO and a single dad to 3 children since the passing of his wife 3 years ago. The children tugged on his coat, and he gave them a smile so tender Alia felt her heart ache. Her story spilled slowly, reluctantly, like a wound reopening. She told him about her husband, her infertility diagnosis, how everything she had built was discarded the moment she couldn't give him the child he wanted. She tried to say it calmly, but her voice cracked and collapsed into tears she couldn't hold back anymore. Rayan didn't interrupt, didn't judge, didn't ask probing questions. He simply listened, his eyes full of depth and quiet understanding. When she finally fell silent, wiping tears with the back of her sleeve, he took a slow breath and repeated the words she least expected. "Come with me." The world paused. Alia looked up in disbelief, certain she had misheard him. But Rayan's gaze didn't falter. He said he couldn't leave her there, that no human being deserved to feel abandoned and unsafe. His children nodded, the little girl holding Alia's hand gently, as if inviting her to a place she had never been welcome before. Alia hesitated, the fear of trusting again tugging at the fragile edges of her heart, yet there was something genuine, something unforced, about them. Something that felt like sunlight creeping through cracks. When she finally agreed, Rayan carried her suitcase to the car while the children climbed in excitedly, as if they had known her forever. Alia sat silently, overwhelmed, watching the city blur past the window. She felt like she was floating between 2 worlds, the one she had been thrown out of, and the one she wasn't sure she deserved to enter. But the children spoke softly, asking if she liked pancakes, telling her about their school projects, letting her know that their father made terrible omelets but excellent hot chocolate. Their innocent chatter slowly stitched pieces of her heart back together. Rayan took her to his home, a warm, beautiful place full of laughter, hand-drawn pictures taped to walls, and the faint scent of cinnamon. He gave her a room, fresh clothes, and let her rest without questions. She slept deeply, a sleep she hadn't known in months, safe for the first time in a long time. Over the next few days, Alia slowly found herself becoming part of their rhythm. She helped the kids with their homework, braided the little girl's hair before school, and listened to the twins' endless stories. Her presence brought a softness back to the house that had been missing since their mother's death. The children clung to her not because she was a replacement, but because she was gentle, patient, and kind in a way they hadn't known in years. Rayan watched quietly from a distance, noticing the way his children laughed differently around her, how they reached for her hand instinctively, how Alia's eyes glowed faintly again. She cooked simple meals and apologized if they weren't perfect. He assured her they were more than perfect, they were made with care, something they had all missed. He admired her strength, the way she carried her pain without letting it poison her kindness. Every day, he found himself drawn to her more, not because she was broken, but because she was healing and somehow helping him heal too. But Alia's past wasn't done with her. One afternoon, as she walked the children home from school, she saw her ex-husband standing across the street with his new fiancée, flaunting their engagement ring. His mocking smile cut her like a blade. He whispered loudly that she was the barren one he had pitied, ensuring she heard. The words churned inside her like a storm. She held the children's hands tighter, her legs trembling, but she kept walking. The kids noticed her silence and hugged her legs, grounding her, reminding her that she was no longer alone. When Rayan came home and found her crying silently in the kitchen, he didn't ask what happened. He simply stepped close and wrapped his arms around her, not as a savior, but as someone who wanted her to feel safe again. The warmth of his embrace thawed the deepest parts of her, and her tears soaked into his shirt as she let herself crumble for the first time in front of someone who truly cared. He whispered that her value had nothing to do with children or expectations. She was enough simply because she existed, because she was kind, because his children adored her, and because he, though he didn't say it aloud, was beginning to cherish her in ways he hadn't thought possible again. Days turned into weeks, and the fragile connection between them slowly grew into something steadfast. The children clung to Alia as if she were their anchor, and she found a sense of purpose she had believed was taken from her forever. Whenever Rayan watched her laugh with the kids or gently comfort them, he couldn't help but feel grateful that fate had led him to that park bench. He realized he didn't just want her to stay temporarily, he wanted her to build a future with them. One evening, as the golden sunset painted the sky, Rayan stood beside Alia on the balcony. The children were asleep, and the house was quiet except for the soft hum of the night breeze. Alia leaned on the railing, breathing deeply, looking at the horizon as if seeing her life unfolding differently than she ever imagined. Rayan stepped beside her, gently placing a warm shawl on her shoulders, careful and thoughtful. She looked at him with soft gratitude, her eyes glowing in the dim light. He took a breath, not rushed, not afraid, and told her she had brought light back into their home. He told her the children needed her, not because she could give them siblings, but because she gave them love, stability, and comfort. Then, with a sincerity that made her heart tremble, he said he needed her too. Not out of loneliness, but out of love he didn't expect to find again. Alia stood speechless, tears forming as she realized that the man before her saw her heart, not her womb, her soul, not her scars. If this story touched your heart, even for a moment, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Whispers of Kindness so more stories of hope and healing can reach those who need them. And before we end, comment below if you believe that every person deserves love, not because of what they can give, but because of who they are.